that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Ball switch straight through, Andrew's there!
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football!
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them!
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up! And Queensland going to do it again!
Hello and welcome to this week's episode, once again brought to you for the Tab in the lead up to the NRL final series, and I think it's well and truly time to cash out on the Broncos, Lockie. Their season is over. Big internal review taking place at the moment in Red Hill, but one of the first things on the agenda, do you think they got it wrong allowing Cowboys, Qlder, Herbie all to go at once?
Oh, I think that's the salary cap at work, you know. The Broncos had a really good season last year, and with that, it increases the value of all the players. And there was a focus on obviously trying to retain Reece Walsh, Ezra Mann. So those players, those two, I guess Payne Haas has always been on good money. So I just think you know, the cap where it was sitting. Unfortunately, you just can't keep everyone, right? Especially after you've had a good year. Especially you go on to a grand final, it's very hard. And you see that, I mean, the good clubs obviously know how to overcome when they lose players like Penrith, right?
Yeah.
So every year they shed 2 or 3 good players, but they're able to get back to where they are.
For the Broncos, was it too much experience, Walt, to lose at once? Like Qlder State of Origin player, Kurt Capewell State of Origin player, Herbie international player. Herbie was one of the best backs in the competition last season. Did that just make it a bridge too far?
Particularly when injuries come along as well. Kurt had a bit of a tougher year, but I guess you know, there's always going to be these sort of things happen at different clubs. It's the Broncos have experienced it previously, where they've you know, planned ahead, done their economics extremely well, but injuries come along, and you can't plan injuries that are surprise occurrences. So it's just a matter of they come along, and it's always going to be very difficult. Usually, though, you get the opportunity to see some of the new faces show some promise, or enormous amounts of promise, as they come along, and you know, probably book the spot for a couple of years to come into the future.
Well, it tests your depth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you lose those quality players. You get some injuries to some key players that are still there. It tests your depth, but as you said, it gives an opportunity for those up-and-comers, but it obviously was a challenging year for the Broncos.
Yeah.
They really struggled when Adam Reynolds went down injured. Next year looks as though it'd be his last season in that number 7 jersey for the Broncos. Like, are you confident there is that spine in place moving forward to keep the premiership window open?
Well, I think I'm confident that the Bronx, given the year they've had, and you know, having a full pre-season and all that, sort of, they've got no excuses. I think they'll bounce back next year. But the spine long term, look, I think you know, there's a couple of players there. You know, Jock Madden. You know, there's a young kid called Kobe Black that's coming through. You know, he's been pretty impressive in Q Cup. So, you know, he'll have another year under his belt while Adam's there, and he's learning from Adam. And so I think there's options there, but you don't replace Adam Reynolds overnight. Yeah. It'll take time.
Yeah, certainly will, Lockie. And Adam, you know, sometimes come along where you get the younger faces, the kids that appear as though that they've got plenty of talent on board, and they remain in a little bit of doubt until they get that opportunity. And who knows, after going along and playing half a dozen games, they may prove to everyone that they're a step up in class, and they perform quite well. So we've really got to be quite patient and wait for those opportunities to come along.
Could you see Ezra Mann shift to halfback when Reynolds retires?
Not in the short term.
Yeah.
I think Ezra is very much a player that plays what's in front of him. You know, he's not an organising player, and I think Jerome Luai this year, when he had to go to 7, he was really impressive.
Yeah.
But he's got a few more years' experience under his belt. I think Ezra maybe in the long term is an option, but in the short term, no.
Yeah, and I think Ezra performs best when he gets the ball off of a receiver and he's had time to have a look around, check out the opposition. If there's half a chance, he performs quite well. He brings out the sidestep and really dominates the attacking raids for his own side. So we'll get to see. But I've just never really looked at him as being a halfback. He's a little bit different.
Well, one halfback who's potentially on the market, Sam Walker, is off contract with the Roosters at the end of next season. Roosters want to re-sign him, but Lockie, should the Broncos have a crack at Sam Walker, or is he too similar to Ezra Mam?
Oh, no, I think he... I guess Luke Keary, who sits outside Sam Walker, is a bit more of an organising six. Yeah, look, Sam's a quality player, and I feel like the Roosters, without Sam, can't win the premiership. So he's getting better with every year and with every game of experience, Sam. And again, the salary cap probably restricts you from bringing someone like that to the club at the moment because, he's demanding big money. He's already got a decent offer on the table from the Roosters, even though it's well below what he's asking. The Broncos at the moment would not be in the market, could not afford that type of player.
And the Roosters rarely let a player go if they want to keep them, so you'd think that situation was sorted south out. But
I'd be very, very surprised if they did let him go, Adam. One thing he's got on his side as well is time. He's a young man, he's still learning the game, he's displaying some good talent, but he's still got plenty of skill that we haven't seen yet.
And that Broncos last game of the season against the Storm, how disappointing was that? Because we talked pre-game, they said they could make a statement, shift the focus of some of that noise, but now it's just accentuated more and more.
Yeah, look, some of the tries, we know the Storm are playing very, very well, but some of the tries were disappointing. It just looked like the team... I know they had nothing to play for, but from the perspective of, playing finals, but it was just disappointing, the scoreline in the end, but also the way some of those tries were scored. And I know the players would be frustrated. They look like they played frustrated. There's a lot of drop ball, a lot of, sort of frustration around not everyone, being in sync with each other. So it's frustrating, it's disappointing for the fans, I know, but like I said, they've got themselves an opportunity now to have a really good off-season, and that's the next step, is focusing on what they can do in the next, have a break, but then the next sort of 2 to 3 months, it's about building some resilience and building some mental toughness and get themselves ready for next year.
Yeah, there were plenty of fans at the ground that were extremely disappointed with the performance, but not as disappointed as the players would have been. And they had a go. It just wasn't their night. So we get the opportunity now just to see how they're going to go when they turn it around, play a new season, and get the opportunity to be able to display their best.
And what specific players do you think didn't have a great year for the Broncos and maybe need a big off-season? I think they struggled on the edges, to be honest. It wasn't Jordan Rickey's best year or Brendan Piakura. They leaked a lot of points through there. And they need another middle forward to help out Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan, who just work their backsides off, get so fatigued. And off the back of, like we said, no Flagler, no Keenan Palacer, I think at the very least they've got to recruit one middle forward. Yeah.
Well, I think losing Kurt Capewell lost a bit of experience on the edge. There's a couple of injuries. I mean, Jordan Rickey, I think, played nearly every game, though.
Yeah.
But again, Jordan's he's still pretty young, right? And Brendan's very young as well. So Gajeski came to the club, he got injured. So there was I think there was real fatigue factor for some of those younger guys on the edges. Yeah. And it just sort of took its toll in the end. And, I agree. I think, when you lose Flagler and you lose Keenan Palacia, you lose a little bit of punch in the middle. And when Payne was in and out of the team due to injury, it obviously took its toll on someone like Paddy.
Yeah. Yeah, each team loves to have a ball-playing forward that can be quite creative to his teammates and offer opportunities, and also a runner that runs in. But we like to have these sort of things, but it doesn't always occur. Bad things happen. Injuries come along for the players, and it's not the right place at the right time. So it's nice to wish for those sort of things, but they're not created and don't just happen by chance.
And watching Carrigan in that Storm game, he looked exhausted. He just looked mentally spent throughout the season after a tough Origin campaign and having to shoulder the load a little bit more.
I think the Origin series was brutal.
Yeah.
Particularly game 3.
And he was amazing for Queensland when he needed to stand up when we were short of a forward.
Yeah, and then they had to back up and play Newcastle in Newcastle. They got the win, but then they fell in a hole the following week.
Yeah.
Against, I think it was the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Wonderful performer, but he looked like he'd run a marathon at the end of the season. And, there wouldn't be one game where you could make an accusation that he didn't have a go.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. He put in, but he just ran out of petrol.
He just needs a bit more support in 2025. Now, our last remaining hope, my Cowboys, in the finals series. Last chance for Queensland to get some premiership glory, Lockie. They're looking pretty lethal in attack. They towed up the Bulldogs heading into the finals. Do you think they could be a team who could come out from outside the top 4 and get on a bit of a roll?
Well, I've been sort of suggesting the Bulldogs in the bottom 4 are the only team that can win it because of their defence.
Yeah.
And I think Manly's in the same boat, and Newcastle, and in my opinion, the Cowboys. If they get their defence right, there's plenty of points in them, right?
Yep.
So they just need to get their defence in order, and that's what wins premierships. And they got it right against the Bulldogs. It's probably the best performance they've had all year.
Yep.
The Cowboys, their attack was good. They completed, but their defence was, the real pleasing part. So that's what they need to repeat.
And their spine too, Wallet. How highly do you rate that spine of Scott Drinkwater, Tom Deard and Jake Clifford now in there with Reece Robson, the Origin-winning hooker from New South Wales? A lot of quality there.
Yeah, there is. I'm a bit of a fan of Tommy Dearden. Love watching him. Watch what he's done over the last couple of years, and think he's extremely creative. But it does appear to be, quite pleasing for the Cowboys. I think they've got opportunity there. They've got some creativity. To get that into play is probably the big challenge. Who they're coming up with, who they shall be targeting. If it's the big forwards running at Tom, he's certainly going to be spent by the end of the game. But I think they're looking okay, the Cowboys. I don't think they're patting themselves on the back too much or doing too much bragging, but they're there and they have an opportunity, and that's certainly better than a few other teams.
And you look at their draw throughout the year, Lockie, they've beaten everyone above them too. So they've beaten the Storm, they've beaten the Roosters, they've beaten the Panthers, they've beaten the Sharks, they beat the Bulldogs in the final round. How important is that when you come into a finals match, just mentally knowing, there's no real fear factor against this side?
Yeah, I think it helps the confidence, but equally you've got to make sure that confidence doesn't become complacency.
Yeah.
Look, they've the first sort of 2/3 of the season there was a little bit of inconsistency about them, but they've got the consistency right at the right time of the year. So, they win this weekend, they have to go on the road for the rest of the season, but they're one game at a time, and like I said, I think they get their defence in order, they're in with a chance.
Is that their biggest challenge, as Lockie just touched on? So they get a home final in Townsville, but for the remainder of the finals, if they keep going, they're going to have to go to Sydney every week, pretty much? Yeah,
that song, On the Road Again, that'll come out virtually every week that they're playing. But I don't think it'll be the thing that's the difference between success and failure. I think they'll really have a go. It'll be who they come up with and the style of footy that they produce on the day. I think they're quite capable of doing it. If you had asked me, 6 or 8 weeks ago, did I think the Cowboys were going to be able to do it, I would have said no.
Yeah.
I think that they appeared as they were running out of petrol, and you and I sitting at the desk were talking about the Cowboys' performances and how tired they look. But they look a little bit different now. But how they handle the road trips, I think could be quite a thing.
Well, I think they'll draw on past experiences, because I remember maybe it was 2015 and Cole Felt and I think Tamalala be the only two remaining, maybe, or Granville.
Yeah.
But every time they went to Sydney and won, come back the crowds that'd be waiting for him
at the airport. Yeah.
You know? So it was this emotional ride that they were going on with their fans. So I'm sure some of those players will draw on that experience to try. Well, no, they've got to get through week 1 first.
Yeah. And Felty, this is the most tries he's ever scored in a season too. He finished second behind Lofi Khan-Pereira, who deserves a big shout-out from the Titans to finish as the leading try scorer for the team that finished well off the pace. Deserves a lot of credit. Also, the Dolphins narrowly missed out that heartbreaker against Newcastle in the final round of the regular season. But overall, boys, what grade are you giving the Dolphins? I'm giving them a B-.
I'd agree. I think, you know, again, at the sort of the first third of the competition, you're probably thinking they're playing finals.
Yeah.
But they fell away, and then it was only really after the Broncos performance they sort of found their mojo again, and they were good on Sunday. They were good. I think they were extremely unlucky.
That try was ridiculous. The bunker decision, he's run at the inside shoulder, and the guy from the other side's coming and hit the outside shoulder. It's like, come on.
No, they got that really, really wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's done now, and time to move on. But I think, you know, B-. If they made the finals, it would have been a B+.
Yeah.
But I agree, B-. They were good considering what they look like on paper. You know, Wayne's, you know, and the injuries they had.
Yeah.
Wayne's done well with them.
Yeah, I agree, Lockie. They had a whole pile of blokes there that you'd feel quite comfortable going into the big matches with, but unfortunately it just sort of didn't get to that stage. But and I'm sure they, you know, even Wayne would have been going to work, doing his level best to try and inspire them. But they just had you know, too many guys that had some injuries that were really struggling, you know, at full time in their last game. I think that stood out and made it so obvious.
And every club seems to struggle when Wayne Bennett leaves. Any sense that could happen at the Dolphins, or did they seem better prepared than any club previously because Christian Wolf has been there from the foundation?
Oh, look, if I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be nervous.
Yeah.
Just because of the history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolfie's a really good bloke and can coach, so I'm confident that if there is a dip, it won't be much.
Yeah.
But there's
just the aura of Wayne and
and you know he's a lot of the times he's got a different approach to everyone else.
Yeah. So
I think Wolfie would be looking at the other clubs that Wayne's left over the years and what they potentially did wrong.
Yeah.
You know, so as I say, he's a good guy. He knows how to coach, so I think he'll do everything he can to try and minimise any impact without Wayne. I think he'd also like to have some luck with some of his players with injuries too.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't even thought about that, Lockie. You're right. Some of the bad luck, extremely bad luck they had you know, throughout the course of the season just could not be matched by the other ones. But yeah, I think that they've got a real challenge in front of them next time around.
Well, I don't know where Flegler's at. Have we got any mail on?
So apparently he is going in for nerve surgery this week. Okay. And at best case scenario, we'll miss half of next season.
Whoa,
That's best case.
Yeah.
And then Tom Gilbert should be back though.
Tom Gilbert's definitely back for round
one.
one.
But they lose Jesse Bromwich.
Yeah.
So
they get Kilikefu Fini-Fuiaki from the Cowboys.
So I think just for Wolfie's sake, I just hope he doesn't have too many injuries, next year.
Plenty of the Cowboys fans are upset that they're losing. Losing him.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got something about him. He's
can put a big hit on too.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And just before we finish up at the Dolphins, where's Isaiya Katoa's career at? Because he played the majority of the season. The most important games of the year, he gets dropped, doesn't play the last 2 games. Well, he did play the second last game, but off the bench, loses the halfback jersey. That's what I meant to say. So what would he be feeling right now?
Look, I think when you got these younger players, whether you're playing in the 7, the 3, the 2, or even up front, like they're gonna hit a flat spot. It's just their maturity. They're still learning to be pros week in, week out. We see it. The Broncos had the same amount. Well, players around that same age where they just flatten out.
Yeah.
So he's gone through a period where, you know, and Wayne, I remember Wayne when he was coaching the Broncos, he'd often send some of the younger guys back to reserve grade to go and have a bit of a spell from first grade and just freshen them up. So I don't think there's anything to worry about for Katoa, but I just think he'd been so good all year that as they were starting to fade the Dolphins, he needed to change things up, and Katoa was probably just a little bit flat.
And his teammates probably were relying upon him to be producing it every week. And, you know, he's a young man, plenty of talent, but, gee, he had almost had scabs on his back from carrying them.
And the Hammer too ended the season in the centres with Trai Fuller at fullback. Trai Fuller was magnificent in that Newcastle game. He was by far and away the Dolphins' best player on the field. Him and Kalen Ponga, the two fullbacks, really stood out. What does that mean moving forward? Like, do you consider, okay, we're going to keep Trai at fullback and Hammer in the centre?
I think you've got to leave him there.
Yeah.
Like, he brings energy, he brings effort, and I'm not saying Hammer doesn't have that, but they're much more dangerous, the Dolphins, when both Hammer and Fuller are out there.
For sure.
And I think it was when the Broncos played the Dolphins and Wayne Bennett was interviewed, and he said, look, every time Trai's played, he's got the player's player. I just had to find a way to get him back in the team. So the players love playing with him. And it was evident again on the weekend what he brings to that team. Without Trai Fuller, I don't think they would have got... Because there was a couple of missed chances there late in the game where he created them. But if it wasn't for Trai Fuller, those opportunities wouldn't even be presented.
And with Trai, there's probably plenty of people that had confidence that he was going to be good, but they are extra surprised that he did better than what they expected him to. So if you've got that talent, you've got to use it.
And his Q Cup team is still in the final, so interesting to see if Trai Fuller plays Q Cup finals. So the prelim finals are on this weekend. The Dolphins play the Northern Pride and the North Devils play the PNG Hunters. You can see that game on the 9 Now app. So Benny Teo, how good of inclusion would that be? Oh, the NRL season's over.
Probably need to tell him to ease up on Mad Monday. Probably put the cue on the rack there and start potentially thinking about playing another game of footy.
That'd be a huge in, sending Trai Fuller back for Q Cup finals this weekend. One more game until their grand final, which is at Redcliffe. Back to our Tab segment too that we're doing now weekly, the Tab Eras debate. The boys on 100% footy kicked it off last night. Is this the most entertaining era of footy that you've seen? Because we've seen some sensational tries, high-scoring matches. What do you think about that statement?
Look, I think the NRL does really well at being nimble about rule changes so the whole... When they do the fan survey, the fans love that unpredictable football. So to bring that into the game, you've got to have the fatigue factor. So that's why we see shot clocks on dropouts, shot clocks on scrums. If you kick it out now, it's not a scrum, it's a play the ball. So they're trying to minimise the stoppage time to create fatigue. Then we see the ab-lib football and the stuff that really excites the fans. So I think the NRL does a really good job of creating the product we have. I was a little bit worried sort of back end of the season that we were maybe scoring too many points, too many tries. Like, I think you can still have a game that's 10-6 like an Origin. It's enthralling.
Even that Knights game, 14-6 Dolphins, that was still...
That was still enthralling. But, you know, to see the athleticism of the players, you know, the wingers scoring the tries in the corners and what some of these athletes do, it's... I remember when I sort of came through the system, you know, I probably started a program when I was 16. Some of these guys now have been, you know, starting these programs since they're sort of 9 and 10. So when they come, and I think that's what you see, the athleticism and the professionalism of these players. They've been doing it for a long time. And you just get these freakish athletes playing a game which has got a great entertainment aspect. So the game's in a really good spot.
Yeah, do you agree? Well, the change to full-time professionalism has been the catalyst for this increased athleticism.
Yeah, well, they've also had plenty of time to use those skills. You know, the old days it was get up on a Monday morning, go to work, knock off at 5:30 and then go home. You wouldn't bother training until the Tuesday night. It used to be Tuesday and Thursday training sessions and Saturday morning. So, yeah, they are far more professional, the guys, and they are much more skillful. And it's been quite interesting to listen to a few of the old blokes say not as good as what we were in our day. And you can just see a few noses growing as they say it. But the standard of the players currently is at an all-time high, and if they're coming up with different ways to continue the attacking raids, it just makes the game so much more entertaining.
Well, the greatest example of what we're talking about, the professional, is the women's game, right?
Yeah.
So you just in the last 4 or 5 years, you put some money and resources into them, and how far they've come in that short space of time. So, yeah, professionalism is obviously a big part of what we see when we watch the game, but I think also the nimbleness or the flexibility with the rules from the NRL creates the product.
What about for you? Well, I believe you worked in a delicatessen. Like back when you played early days, like what would a normal week look like for you? Like now the players train, go home, do whatever, train, play. What would a normal week be for you?
Monday it was recover a bit from the game, but for me I was working at a delicatessen. I bought one. I took it as some advice from people that said to me, don't spend your football money, invest it.
Yeah.
So I bought a deli in the Kmart Plaza at the Cannon Hill Shopping Centre. So I used to get in there and had a ball on Monday mornings. I used to go straight to the seafood markets and slice ham off the bone, eat 2 slices, put one up for sale.
How good's ham off the bone?
Ham off the bone, beautiful. But go to the seafood markets the next day and buy prawns, Moreton Bay bugs, crabs, and sell them. But for a lot of the guys, I used to try and say to them, if you can, and you feel quite comfortable doing it, get yourself involved in a business. Don't be wasting your money. And it was an opportunity that I was very thankful my mum came up with the idea, and it was terrific. But for me, it also having the opportunity to work. For myself and my mum, I was able to take time off if I needed it to go and get the injuries treated, where some guys were at work used to have to wait till after they finished work. So it was it turned out to be a wonderful road for me to follow.
So you would finish work about what time and then head to training?
I'd always finish at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
The shopping centres used to close at 5, I think, and I'd head straight down to Wynnum in my latter days, and be involved in training there, and then back to work on the next morning and slip out to the seafood markets and go buy the prawns and eat most of them and get away from the profits. So that was it. So it was just a matter of being able to have my own time and space to be able to adjust when I needed time to treat some injuries. It was always look after them.
And in the first years of the Broncos, were you guys full-time or did you have to work as well?
First year of the Broncos?
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't full-time employees at the Broncos. We used to go just straight back to our jobs.
Yeah,
that didn't come in. I was going to say a bit.
Did you work a job when you first started?
I worked at the Broncos Leagues Club when I first came down in '95 because I was an apprentice carpenter. I was waiting for a transfer, and then, I got a rails run and got lucky. I played first grade within sort of the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And I remember because in 1995, Wayne still there was match payments, right? So if you win, so I remember the exact amount was $962.
For a win?
It was $1,500, take the tax out.
Oh, yeah.
$962, and he'd come around with these. He'd have a bank bag with little envelopes in it, and he'd start handing them out. And I remember I used to work 30 hours a week in my traineeship at the Leagues Club.
Yeah.
And then I'd net $162
a week.
And then I remember my debut for the Broncos. I played for 20 minutes, and I got $962 cash. And I'm like, okay.
I got enough down
I know what I want to do.
But Adam, the $1,500 for a win, that came in. The Broncos were the first club to do that.
Yeah, okay.
And when they announced that, when it became public, everyone in the general public went nuts, and players from other clubs saying, "Oh, what about those lowlifes from up there? $1,500 a win, they're getting that much. We don't get that." They probably got bigger sign-ons than we may have got, but that was the way of Paul Morgan, Gary Balkin, Murray Maranta and Steve Williams the 4 owners how it was always to attract the players. But at 1,500 guys, $1,500, you could just see the eyes closing and ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Straight over to the Broncos Leagues Club. Elf got us all in a headlock. Bring your match payment. I was like 18 going, I don't really want to get this to the punters club. And yeah, we'd be there all afternoon and then licking our wounds the next day.
Well, maybe that was the key to the success of the Broncos' early days, those match payments.
I agree. I agree.
Maybe bring them back.
One of my favourite things was Wayne walking in with the bank bag. He started handing out these envelopes.
We can talk about the old stories forever, always entertaining. And Titans fans tuning in, don't stress. We'll talk more about you next week. We'll have a full season review of what went wrong with Desi Hasler's man. Plus, we're giving Wal some homework. He's Queensland Team of the Year. He's coming back. Look on his face, he doesn't know this yet, but it is in the notes, so he's going to do a bit of research there.
Just to clarify that, so Queensland teams, they
have to play for a Queensland club.
But they can be New South Wales players that play for Queensland clubs. So I'll put you on the spot. But we need to clarify.
We might have to go to the video ref and check that.
Will be clarified.
Yeah. We won't send it to the bunker because the bunker will probably get that decision wrong on that. So we'll look into it. But make sure you stay tuned. Wide World of Sports, all the finals action live and exclusively free, including the Cowboys blockbuster up there in Townsville against the Knights. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Own.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.